Welcome to the International Classroom Podcast, where we're diving into the future of education, edtech innovations, and the role AI plays in reshaping how we teach and learn. I'm your host, Alex Gray, and I'm bringing you insights and interviews with experts and educators from around the world who are transforming classrooms one tool at a time. Now, before we dive in, this episode is brought to you by Smart Technologies. Now, they have just launched the Smart Academy in Arabic. This is a platform for educators looking to enhance their skills with interactive technologies. And you can visit this at smarttechnologies.academy to learn more and explore how Smart is empowering educators in the Arab-speaking world. Now, today's episode is part of our special series on edtech innovations, and I am thrilled to be joined by Thomas Blakemore, an experienced teacher, content creator, and AI enthusiast who's using technology to enhance the way we approach teaching. Now, if you're an educator looking to balance teaching with content creation, or you're simply just curious about the potential of AI in the classroom, this episode is for you. Now let's get started. Mr. Thomas Blakemore, thank you ever so much for joining us on the International Classroom Podcast today. Whereabouts in the world do we find you?
So at the moment, I'm in the UK during what's left of my summer holidays before I then go traveling.
Yeah, I imagine you're kind of casting your eye over to where we are in the UAE and not feeling any bit jealous or, remorseful of us who are coming back into school as of tomorrow.
No, I don't fear the admin. I do feel that kind of fear of missing out on perhaps some of the social events and some things like that. But in terms of admin, it's something I'm quite pleased to not miss for a change.
Yeah, I can definitely vouch for that one at the moment in terms of what I'm doing. So for those people out there, and there may only be a small collection of them who maybe don't know about you, maybe have been under a rock for the past couple of years, introduce yourself for us.
So my name, as you've mentioned, is Thomas Blakemore, and I am or was a primary school teacher for the last 8 years. Started content creation when I was teaching in the UK to support my class who were in year 6 going through their SATs. And then that transitioned as I moved over to the UAE 2 years later to content to support teachers with the transition to the UAE, but also lots of ed tech and nowadays AI tutorials and advice to support with the transitioning world that we find ourselves in at the moment. I really went hard on different tutorials during the online learning phase, and I've seen further growth through social media, and then that's allowed me to be able to support a wider net of teachers globally and work towards awards, which always feels very strange to see. But yeah, it's one of those things.
It's just kind of an outcome. It's never the purpose, is it? It's just an outcome of what you do, and that recognition is always nice. And obviously you mentioned something in there which we really want to focus in and dive into today, which is to do with the AI side and how things have transitioned up to that part of, I'm still going to call it educational technology because that's what I kind of believe it is. But I'm really curious in terms of what sparked your interest in integrating AI into education.
So in terms of my integration, I would say that I kind of accidentally discovered it through content creation first and then went, oh my gosh, this is going to be fascinating. And when I discovered it, it was actually during one of the summer holidays, and I realized that my YouTube videos could be broken down and turned into blogs. Then I started to realize that some of these blogs could actually just be, pieces of content that I'm creating for my class, whether it's different good examples of literature to then showcase in my class. And this was way before ChatGPT, so I had no idea what large language models were or anything like that. I just knew this is really cool, and I'd like to try this. So I made a video a long time ago before ChatGPT came out, sort of showcasing some of the ways that I could use that in English. I think it was Copy AI was what it was called. I'm sure it probably uses the API of ChatGPT, perhaps one of the older models. But I was just so blown away by it. And then, of course, after I think it was December 2022 or 3, that's when ChatGPT really blew up and 3.5 came out. And then, of course, that's when we all started to discover it and I was able to make tutorials. But I think for myself, it was just a case of finding it and realizing that there was a vast potential, not just in terms of large language models, but also AI image generation too.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think most people, and I've seen a lot of those tutorials and have found great value in them, as we kind of mentioned about the awards that kind of come when you put out great content and value to teachers. But just from your perspective, what value do you think there is for someone like who's balancing content creation, who's balancing a teaching workload? How do you see, and how have you found the AI tools that you use? How have you found them helpful in streamlining your workload?
So I'm a dyslexic teacher, and as a dyslexic teacher, using artificial intelligence has almost become a personal assistant for me. Now, I can't rely on it to be absolutely perfect. I still have to go through with a fine-tooth comb afterwards and make sure that everything's kind of aligned. But for me, being able to turn my content into blogs and then upload those blogs onto whether it's social media or my website, that's helped me out tremendously. And then in terms of my own personal ability to be a bit more efficient with things, when I'm getting lengthy emails come through, I can then either get condensed versions of those using AI, or I can then get the email, bring it in, and then almost generate a response to that email, then read through, okay, does that quite make sense? And I find that to be, probably saves me half the time as what I was doing previously, So in terms of, it's more the admin side of things. In terms of video creation, put in the captions underneath everything. Of course, that's a form of AI. That, for me, I used to pay someone to go and do all of the different captions. And now I can just quickly go, right, done, upload, does it, quickly check it all makes sense. And that's just speed and efficiency.
Fantastic. So are there any platforms then, because you've talked about a few different examples there. So what are the types of platforms that you're using to help do those things?
So for content, CapCut nowadays has a tremendous amount of AI tools integrated into it. And in the UAE, because different models, in the UAE, there's more free tools available than there are in the UK, which I find fascinating. There's certain ones that you have to pay for in the UK that you don't in the UAE. I miss that. I've had to pay for that now. So that's one of those things. And I think it's really wider edtech tools that have AI integrated into them, because if you can learn the foundations of a tool and then use some of the AI integrations, rather than go to specific tools, it makes it a lot easier. So for me, for example, Unscreen was one that I made during online learning. I didn't realize that it was an AI tool, but what it does is it removes you from the background of a video. Nowadays, you can go into a tool like Canva or CapCut, and you can do that within the app. And if I'm thinking from the head of a teacher, that means you haven't got to do the big traipse down to the ed tech room, if you're privileged to have one, to stand in front of a green screen, to make sure the iPads are fully charged, to then do all of those bits and pieces. Like CapCut, Canva, I think you can do probably 80% of content creation, especially with children, through those two tools.
Yeah, I've definitely seen how, especially Canva. Like my kids, I was speaking to someone about this actually yesterday, and he was saying, like, in terms of their videos, he's using CapCut, and I've seen my kids, and my kids are like 9 and 10, on their iPads using it, and they said, "Oh, you must use CapCut," and I was like, "No, it's one of those things that I've kind of learned." I suppose stupidly, I learned like how to use Premiere Pro, so you're kind of thinking up there at the top of the yeah. And I can't work backwards. I can't work myself down. I've not had the time to work it down. And it's something I need to do. But Canva, definitely completely agree in terms of the power that's come into that now. And with the education side of it that you can get hold of, I think that's a really good a recommendation as a starting point. And I'm interested then, in terms of recommendations, there's going to be lots of teachers out there. You know, we're kind of talking still relatively new in the term time here. For those who are wanting to start incorporating AI, like, where should they begin? What's been some of the best systems and platforms that you've come across that you would recommend for those teachers to start with?
So I think there's almost like a foundation of certain tools that you want. I think you want a really strong large language model. I think you want a really strong AI image generator. You can get some of the more interesting tools such as Suno, which is music generation. You can then take something for media, whether it's Canva, whether it's CapCut. I think having a strong foundation of those 4 or 5 is a brilliant starting point. So in terms of large language models, it seems to be whatever the flavor of the day is, whether it's Gemini, whether it's, that's the best one at the time. Sometimes it's Claude, and you can do different things through Claude, creating different apps, but some of that might be a bit too technical as a starting point for some people. but that's a great starting point. Or, of course, we know of ChatGPT. Personally, because of the integrations with some of the work systems, I was in a Google school. Using Gemini was extremely efficient for me. And I could just go at YouTube, take this video, generate this text from the video, and it was all built into one. Certain people would argue against that and say that, okay, Gemini is not as strong with certain things versus something like Claude. Claude is really, I think the user interface is really efficient, really streamlined, very nice to use. I just think it's really, really great. And then we go to AI image generator. And then there's two ways of looking at it. It's whether you're using AI image generator for yourself, in which case there's so many different ones available, or it's if you're using it with the class, because you've got to think about the ethics side of things. So AI, so if it's for yourself, I would say something like Ideogram, really good with text generation within the image. If it's something for students, of course, you've got Canva that has certain things built into it, but you could start to look at something called Perchance. Perchance is free. Does lots of creates lots of different versions of an image, but it uses the foundations of Adobe Firefly, but you haven't got to sign up for things and kids don't need to worry about that. CapCut, Canva, we've spoken about. Educators can get Canva for free. CapCut, there's lots of features for free, but some are paid for. And then, of course, you've got lots of other fun ones, such as Suno for songs. You know, you could create seven Emirates of the UAE song. You can do that as a rap now instead of...
We all know that one.
We know that song. But you can start to mess around with that, you know. Fajira is this and Abu Dhabi. I'm not going to do a rap. Don't worry. Would be quite entertaining, I'm sure. Car crash of a podcast. But I think having that foundation is strong.
No, I think everyone would love to hear you rap, by the way. We're not going to put you on the spot right now, but I think that could be a future, you know, there could be an avenue down there for you.
If teaching, you know, going back to teaching doesn't work out, you know, might MC Grammar's there, you know.
You've got the rapping science teacher. I think you've got a network you could crawl upon just to kind of smooth that transition through. I am interested though, because obviously, and it's one of those, I often, from my side, obviously in secondary, our use of AI is probably going to be very different to the students' use of AI in primary. And obviously the guardrails and the ethics that you mentioned, and even with things like ChatGPT, Gemini that's there, 13 plus, you know, parental consent. And there are other platforms like Mindjoy where we can use those. Did you find in primary that actually what's the provision is for students in there is completely different? Or is it a case of, no, there are systems out there, you just have to look and you just need to know what you're looking for and how to use them?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's always a little bit more conservation in terms of safeguarding the pupils when you're using AI. Now, if we think of being conservative with the tools that we're using, we've been doing that for a long time because we've used Google. And if we just let children use Google, then the guardrails, they'd go off on a tangent. So we've been doing it for a while with things like Google, making sure that children are using safe searches. KidRex for Google came about, and it's still not perfect. A lot like these large language models, they're not perfect at making sure that the ethics are completely aligned. So when you're using some of these AI tools, making sure that you're there supervising them is absolutely essential. You can't really do many things, in my opinion, without that supervision. In the same way, I've been using AI way before ChatGPT, Copy AI. I had Alexa in my class. I've had Alexa in my class for 4 or 5 years. Technically, that's a form of AI. It's not generative AI, but it's been in my classroom and I've been able to use it for a range of different topics. And now and again, it says something and I'm like, okay, I've got to turn Alexa off before it actually, the answer to this is you've got to be there. You've got to be there. And that's having that conservation there. So when you're using these tools such as ChatGPT, if it's an image generator, which you can be a little bit more relaxed on, it's still making sure that you're supervising the children at the same time. So if I've got ChatGPT, I might just have a ChatGPT station on my laptop in the corner of the classroom so that if children have questions, they can go to it and I'm able to see everything that the children are doing rather than them just going off on their own.
Awesome. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit with this, but it's one of the new features that we kind of want to integrate into the podcast for this season is about kind of like how we can generate a toolkit for educators. So what I'm doing, every guest I have on, I kind of say, right, here's a toolkit segment and I want you to give me a walkthrough. And for you, I'm interested if you could pick one of those AI tools and obviously you've got a plethora you can pick from, but ones that you kind of use day in, day out for your lesson planning. And just take us through kind of a step-by-step how you use that tool for building your lesson plans, and how you use that tool to assist you, just so we can get a sense of it, of how you've integrated AI into your workflow.
So I'll go away from the typical answer of perhaps a large language model that would help with planning and bits and pieces. Ideogram has been the one for me that I've used consistently inside the classroom. It's been great for my lesson planning, great for decoration in terms of the class. So with Ideogram, I've been able to make a range of different posters for different topics that we're doing. So for example, we're studying an Egyptian type of lesson, and I was able to start generating different posters that were specifically themed to different things that we'd been talking about, whether it was the text, whether it was children's names within the image, and then I could start to generate those different things. In terms of then taking the text away, just having that for my planning has been extremely tremendous, because I've been able to use some of those tools to plan. So if we're helping children visualize certain images, certain literature, I'm able to then type out what the waggle, what a good one looks like, and then create an image that's specifically tailored to the text, rather than if children are struggling to visualize. That's then available in terms of putting the presentations in. So Ideogram, I think image generation, that's been one that I've used really consistently. I've been able to show different colleagues, and then they're able to integrate it into their lesson plans. So that's been really tremendous.
Yeah, I think that's thinking about how students learn, or the different types of processing that takes place. I remember even for science, you're trying to teach them, and you're writing out a concept. And it's like, if there was an image that could showcase this, the kids used to make fun of my drawings all the time. In terms of on the board, he's like, "Sir, what is that?" And I kind of like them, the concept of something that is completely bespoke or unique to something. It's memorable, but at the same time, it doesn't work for all those students. And being able to offer up those options that are just type it in, boom, it's done. I think that's a really, really useful way of actually how we can integrate AI into lesson planning, because now we start to think about, dual coding. Like, I can do this. It can help support like an image, or it can annotate around it. And I think that's a really good way and an easy way for a lot of educators also to get started using it, and not just like it's all about ChatGPT and asking it to write a lesson plan. It's a really useful tool to actually integrate into your lesson planning arsenal, which is really good. So,
for sure.
Transitioning a little bit in terms of just thinking about content creation there, and this balance, because on some of the ways we've got teachers, especially in Dubai, where it's very much like a brand. We've seen it on LinkedIn, and I talk about this quite a bit. And I'm just curious from your side, as someone obviously who's created so much content with this whilst being an active teacher, how do you see AI helping teachers build their personal brands or create content effectively?
I think it's the game changer in terms of time, as I was kind of talking about before. I think having it available for supporting with reducing the workload is absolutely game changing. So if it is, like I mentioned before, changing the captions on a video, just very quickly being able to bring that across rather than open up an editor and typing out each thing, that's a game changer. Whether it's replying to emails that you might get as a content creator and being able to generate those emails quickly, whether it's quickly scripting different bits and pieces. You can have different attachments into ChatGPT with Canva that will allow you to create carousels so that you've got those available. I know we've spoken in the past about having an AI scheduler for the content. I've still not found one. Maybe you have. I've still not found one, but I think that could be really, really useful too.
I've seen a few people using AI to help schedule their workflows in school, like in terms of putting it in from there. And the reason why I asked this question is kind of, again, having this conversation about it, is when you're making videos, it's almost easier to have a sense of authenticity to you now. And I know we can talk about text to video generation, but we can still pretty much see if it's you or I that were on the video. Like, we can tell now.
Yeah.
Where do you strike that balance then in terms of authenticity? Do you think there's a gray area between it, or do you think then that actually people should be declaring how much they use AI, or or is it, it's okay, it really doesn't matter, it's the value of the content that goes out there? Where do you sit with that?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is that obviously it comes from you first. So if you're going straight into ChatGPT and going, right, I want 10 ideas for my brand that I talk about, AI in the classroom, give me 10 ideas. Straight away, I'm going, okay, that's okay, but what are you doing with those ideas? Are you starting to pad those out yourself? So it's how much input you have into those ideas. Now, for me personally, if I get an idea, I'm going to film it all myself. And then the after process is what I'm using AI for. So sometimes if I use my tool Captions, which puts the captions in, it gives me a transcript. It's that transcript, which is completely my words, that I might then put into AI, which will help me then with the caption that I put onto LinkedIn, Instagram. But even when that's generated, I can't just go, yes, we copy paste.
Yeah.
I then have to have that input. It's whether or not you're putting your own input into it, because far too often nowadays, if you go onto YouTube, you've got the snake oil salesman that will say, create $10,000 a month using faceless reels, and you've seen it before, and it's really, you look at it and you go, yeah, that'd be tempting, but people are going to see straight through it, and it's looking at the other end. It's that, am I proud of what I'm producing? Am I able to put my name to this? Because a lot of people are putting their name to things that they've not even produced. So and I think eventually, especially as people start to look for that authenticity, which you are more and more because of AI, people will start to see through things. I don't know, what's your stance on labeling AI generated content?
That's kind of where I was going to get to, because again, I was at the Collab UAE event on Friday, and one of the presenters was up there, and he had generated some images that obviously we're using, and at the very bottom of it, they had that. It was a circular thing generated with AI or helped with AI, and obviously it's something the school has, I think, must have as a policy, so that students can start to see when content has been generated, more image based rather than maybe some of the text based side of things. But I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence with it. I'm a terrible writer. I'm far much more comfortable talking and doing it, which is why I always chose to make videos over write content. Whereas now, with, like you've mentioned, with the ability to get transcripts and download them and do obviously AI them, has made writing content for those people who prefer to read rather than watch or listen actually more valuable. So being able to provide still insightful and helpful material in the formats that people prefer is really useful for me. And so I use it to ideate, and I use it to kind of edit for me a little bit, but I don't label it. I think it's more now when I read something in an education, you can kind of, if you use AI enough, I think you can get a sense of it. It reads and it flows in a certain way. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm not against it, and not from a when you're sharing content, especially if it's your original idea. So, for example, when we finish and this goes out, I get the transcript, and I'm going to bring that down, and I'm going to use that to help me produce content for that, because it's effective, it's efficient, and the reality is it writes a damn sight better than I do. And so, from my side, should I label that? Does that decrease my, what's the word I'm looking for? I suppose, how I'm viewed or regarded? Does it decrease my, I can't think what the correct word I'm looking for is then, not caliber,
credibility.
But that's the word. Does it decrease my credibility? And in this sense, well, the answer I think is no, because the words are mine and they're yours. And I've just turned it into something that's more accessible or that's easier to digest for someone. And it's saved me a lot of time. When it comes to school, for example, like I use AI to help ideate all sorts of different things with lessons, because I want things like, I want Michael Fullan's, 6 C's. I want to do about character, but then I want something that's interdisciplinary. And then I want to cross the biology with this, but I then want it to tie into UNESCO's, all these different 15. I don't know all that top of that content off the top of my head. My skill is being able to bring it together to ideate and then go use my content knowledge to go, that's good for my subjects, that's not. Do I need to label that into my lesson plans? And I don't think so, because from my side, it's about developing the students. They can all tell when you put a picture up on the board, especially what we were talking about earlier, they pretty much can all tell that's an AI generated image. 9 times out of 10 in secondary, they can go, yeah, that's AI generated. And if they say to me, I'll be like, yeah, of course it is. And if they say, oh, sir, did you? I'm like, no, me and my AI assistant planned this lesson together. Yeah. And that's pretty much, in terms of what I'm using it for. But I think it does, and it's helpful to label things just from the other side of it, to label it there, because then it helps the students to also see, rather than, because they just take everything as read, they'll take it as golden that what you're giving them is correct, accurate, whatever. And having those parts in there to go, you know what, guys, I do use this, and I've used it to generate this. I can show you how to do it. But I also want you to know that, I've used it. So you can then start to be analytical, because what you see online and what you read, what you watch, and all these different things, you have to be analytical and go, right, is that authentic? And I say to my students now, they're in a generation where all their work is going to be scrutinized like never before, more than ours ever was, because someone's going to look at it and go, is this authentic? Personal statement, essay that you've just written, especially if it's typed, all those things. And even someone told me a story the other day about a boy who had programmed his 3D printer to hold a pen and write in his style.
Right.
So he'd used AI and coding to create that, and just plugged it in, and it would just write. So it would look like he'd done everything himself. I was like, that deserves applause. That's cool. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it's one of those challenges we're going to face moving forward, isn't it? It really is.
It is. It's that kind of tiptoe to augmentation, isn't it? Like you said, we're moving towards that augmentation kind of phase where people are going to start to question things a little bit more. They'll be like, oh, is it AI? Is it not AI? And you said your class will be able to see 9 times out of 10 whether it's AI image or normal image. But I think in the future, as things get better, that question will start to, it will be more 5 times out of 10, 4 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And then I think that's when we need to not only just the onus is not just on us as well, but the technology companies who are earning billions from these different technologies. Yeah. It's the onus is then on them to also have some responsibility over showcasing, almost having things in the not the blueprint. What's the word I'm looking for? The watermark, like an AI watermark of.
Well, it's interesting.
This is AI,
Yeah, ChatGPT were thinking about doing that, weren't they? Whether it's in the metadata or some sort of watermarking. How far they get with that, I don't know. And it's a lot of the teacher conversation about just trying to catch kids out. It's like, we don't want to do that. If they're finding that they're using AI to do your homework, then actually it's on you. The homework you have set
it's not
the right type of homework. But I'm interested because we're kind of going down that path now about the future. And I'm interested from your viewpoint in terms of what are you excited about, or where do you see AI evolving to in these next couple of years, both across primary and secondary, that you think is going to be a positive thing?
So I'm really excited for the developments of video generation. Genuinely, when I did my first bit of CPD at one of the Collab UAE events before ChatGPT kind of came into the surface, it was all about, look at this image generation. And I'm still keen, especially in primary, to use that to help children with visualization. But I think the additional power to do that with video, to then, if you're getting tools where you can remove yourself from a background, put yourself behind something, and the children are then able to type out their literature that showcases a set in description. But instead of just being an image, it's an actual video, and it's showing the way that they're walking through this different place, for example, and it's showing the trees swaying in the whatever it is, whatever simile they choose to use, whatever metaphor they choose to use. Then, the children are able to show that, and you can almost put it in reverse then. So it's all of those things that are really exciting about image generation, but then put into video. And then, of course, as a content creator, the idea of video generation, integrating and weaving that into my videos is really exciting too. Sort of thinking about, if I freeze frame this, I can start to look at using VFX to have something come out the door and bits and pieces like that. That could be really exciting. If we're ever in a phase of online learning again, or if we've got children who are learning from home and we're able to, seamlessly integrate those bits together, that's going to be a game changer.
Exactly.
And you can slap a song, 7 Emirates of the UAE song behind it at the same time.
Well, that's it. You'll see it'll be on Emirates planes. That's it. No more of those real. It will be all AI generated. And even in Hollywood, like they've started small with it, but they are doing it, aren't they? Like in crowd fills and stuff like that. It's getting to that point. But let's go on the other side of the fence. Because if anyone's listening and watching this, it's going to be like, we're making it sound like AI is going to be the bee's knees and we should all be doing it, all should be using it. But it's not necessarily that case. There are still educators that are skeptical, don't know enough about it. And so for those people out there that are on that fence, or even completely on the other side of the fence to what we are, what advice would you be offering them to encourage them to start exploring these tools?
I would just say to start off a bit like with everything, and it would just be looking at research. Research what's out there, even with your skeptical view. If you're not thinking about using it, that's fine, but just see what's available. See what's available and offer the contrasting viewpoint. Because at the moment, there's a lot of people who are extremely excited about AI. You and I, we could talk for days about all the different AI tools, but I actually like to see people's contrasting viewpoints. So as you're starting to look at different things that are available, give those contrasting viewpoints. If it's a video generator and you start to think about the ethics of, what about using children's faces and things that we might not have actually thought about because we've been so kind of blindfolded and kind of, what's the phrase?
Blinkered almost.
Blinkered, yes. Yeah. Blinkered. We automatically go into this is going to be possible. Look at this. But I actually like having those individuals who are on LinkedIn who are actually going, well, actually, no, think about this from this angle, because they might still be using them themselves, doing the research, but given that alternate viewpoint is I think is really important in any organization, but then also important in any upcoming tool.
Yeah. I spoke with, in this series, I've spoken with different people, and there's a gentleman called David Hattermy, who's based over in Florida, and he talks about AI policy writing and to do with ethics, and went through the same thing about the toolkit and said, look, how do we go about writing policies? And he said, the first thing you need to ask people is why, or in terms of what is the problem you're trying to solve. So, for example, GCSE results have come out, A-level results have come out, and there are going to be some schools out there and some individuals and departments said, well, my exam results were phenomenal. My exam results were this. And we all know that as educators, that's one of the things we get measured on. And we know we don't like that. We know that's another conversation for another time. But for those ones, you're going to say to them, what's the problem you're trying to solve as a school? And they might be like, well, I don't have a problem. And that's the challenging part, isn't it? But I think it's a positive thing because, it's only then, well, are we using it for the sake of it or actually addressing the problem, the why? Why do we use it? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And then once we understand that, we can start to dive a bit deeper into the ways and means in which our students and teachers are using these things. Because, for example, for me in science, I might not want to use the same, application or tool, let's say in secondary or primary, and we have those different needs and wants. So I think what you're saying there is actually really, really valuable in terms of opposing views. And it's positive to have, I'll say conflict. It's not conflict per se, but it's positive to get resistance because it makes you drill down further really onto the what, why, and how for this. Yeah. And if it doesn't have that for you, then don't use it. I think that's still as simple as that. It's still as simple as that.
Every tribe,
exactly.
Every tribe needs a conflict in, the person that says, "Oh, what about this danger?" Yeah, I think otherwise you go in the wrong direction. Yeah,
most definitely. Right, I did pre-warn you about this last question I was going to ask you, so we'll see how it goes. But if you could design any AI tool to solve any specific problem in education, what would it be, and how would it work?
So I thought about it as we were talking about this. This podcast, I thought that's the one. There's a gap. The AI scheduler, whether it's scheduling content, whether it's scheduling emails. If you've typed in someone's name, just having that ability to schedule that email without having to go into Tap and schedule for this time. Whether it's you're setting your lessons on Google Classroom or whatever learner management system you use, to have that automation to schedule those things out for the whole week, whether it's based on the date that you've titled it. Having those things available there, absolutely fantastic. And then obviously from a personal content creation perspective, having an AI scheduler would be absolutely fantastic too. I just think I always look for ways that I can save time because educators don't have enough of it. And I think that would be one where you can save time so that teachers can either, be a bit more innovative with lessons, do some other things inside the classroom, or actually just make themselves a cup of tea and spend time at home with family.
Yeah, that would be good. As soon as you said that, I'm like, it's like the AI Debbie McGee. Now, you might be of a certain age or generation where you don't know who Debbie McGee is. And I have to explain this to all my kids in class, because whenever I get an assistant up, they all get called Debbie, whether they're a boy or a girl. And the kids look at me like, what? And I was like, every magician needs a beautiful assistant, type of thing. Okay. And it's like, Paul Daniels, it's magic. That would be a great one. Yeah, I'm showing my age now. There's a gap between us. Yeah, that would be amazing. I imagine someone out there will be onto that at some point, and
hopefully so.
Things, that would be great.
I think it would save us both a good amount of time.
It would do. I mean, I kind of bounce between different ones, and that just all gets put into like a Notion calendar and trying to figure bits out, but block by block. And it would be great if it was there, could just remind me. You see people with the Meta glasses. And it's like, or with the Google pods that are going to be coming out soon as well, that can do certain things. But you could just have that on your phone. It sends you reminders like, hey, just to let you know this is going to be happening, or just to let you know I've ordered the groceries for you. You wanted to cook chicken parmesan tonight? It's been ordered for you. It's getting delivered. Those types of things. This
subscription is going to renew in this day. Do you want to cancel it? Yes.
I need that. It happened to me over the summer, and it wasn't even for me, it was one of the kids, and it was like, this is going to renew and it's going to cost you £120. I'm like, what the heck? And it's just something that the kids had ordered off their iPad because it's connected to my iTunes. I'd be like, no. I had to actually email Apple in the end because I couldn't do it myself. I just need my own little AI to help chop that. It would be amazing.
6 month free ones that then becomes £120 for the year.
Yeah, what would you pay for that? Jeez. So last one then. What is it that I should have asked you today that I haven't?
Good question. I guess the future direction, but I'm not sure if I'm able to answer that myself yet.
Well, let's just go with, what is the future direction for Thomas Blakemore? Because there's going to be lots of people who are interested, because as you've said, I'm away from teaching for now. I'm going to go traveling. Recently got married. Many congratulations to you and your lovely wife now. What are your plans? What are your future plans?
So I guess really this is a bit of a dream. I've worked relentlessly for 8 years, both through teaching and content creation, and I'm sure, like yourself, many late nights, many early mornings creating. And I've been able to kind of buy myself a pocket of time to really focus on what it is that I want to do in the future. And to be honest, there's part of me that has a rough idea, and there's part that really just kind of wants to see if my mind changes. So Teach, Travel, Triumph is my website. It's something that I just said because I thought I needed a slogan at the start of my YouTube videos. But over time, it very, very quickly became something. It became a brand. And it's now, I'm a director of that company. It's now a company that's going to help, hopefully, teachers globally with finding direction. And I guess part of my vision now is to try and help teachers with finding their way. I think there's a lot of teachers who perhaps are feeling a little bit lost with things at the moment, whether it's in the classroom, not knowing how to innovate lessons. So, talking about using edtech and AI tools, whether it's not knowing where they want to go next in terms of their career, or whether they want to remain in teaching at all. And I don't want to be that person that talks them out of teaching, but I do want to make sure that teachers have different paths that they can follow. And I guess that's the focus.
Sounds very, very exciting. Very exciting. And I think it's well deserved as well, because can't be all teach, no travel, no triumph, can you? So, it's hats off to you for taking that leap, as it were, because it is that. And I imagine it was quite scary and quite daunting to kind of commit to it.
For sure. Yeah, it's been, you're coming away from something that is extremely safe and secure. That I could very easily do another year in Dubai, and I know exactly what to expect. I know which months to create certain pieces of content, when there's no inspection this year, but for some schools, but yeah, I know exactly when to do certain things, and it's that routine, and it's looking at, okay, I know exactly how I'm going to feel at certain points of the year, and having had 2 years in a row that were a little bit like that, I kind of thought, let's just try it. Let's just see a huge risk, and hopefully there's a reward. I mean, we might do an interview in the future where it's not worked out. But
well, as we say, we want to. I think sometimes it's important that we mirror the characteristics that we want in our students and for future world leaders, and risk taking is one of them. And there's a phrase that says, "Comfort is the enemy of progress." And to take yourself out of a zone that's comfortable, that and you can just almost kind of switch off to, and take that leap. It's hats off to you. I think it's a fantastic way to look at things and approach it. And I'm sure, knowing the type of person that you are, that you will get everything you want and more out of it, and produce some amazing content and meet some wonderful people along the way. And then from me and probably everyone that's watching and listening, we wish you all the best with it. So thank you ever so much for joining us today and sharing your wonderful insight and knowledge. It's been a joyous chat, and I'm sure, we could have gone on much, much longer about different things with AI and content creation and all sorts of things. But real pleasure speaking to you today, Thomas. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on the International Classroom Podcast. And I hope this conversation with Thomas Blakemore gave you some valuable insights into how AI and EdTech can streamline your workload and enhance your teaching. If you have enjoyed the episode, please be sure to subscribe, share with your fellow educators, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep delivering content that matters to you. As always, a special thanks to our sponsor, Smart Technologies, and don't forget to check out their newly launched Smart Academy in Arabic. It's going to be a fantastic resource for educators to learn how to integrate interactive technologies into their classrooms. Again, you can visit smarttechnologies.academy for more details. You can also find more resources and ideas discussed in today's episode in the show notes. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on the latest trends in education and technology. Until next time, keep innovating, keep teaching, and keep transforming classrooms everywhere.